Hello friends, today I'm going to demonstrate to you withholding tax calculation within Oracle Fusion. So let's deep dive into the session to understand more about withholding tax and why it is required. This is a legal requirement to withhold tax actually from your supplier invoices and pay to the tax authority on behalf of the supplier. Okay, so Oracle provides you two different events basically when at the time of invoice creation or at the time of payment. And I'll show you actually in the setup where exactly you can set this up. And it all depends on the business to business actually when exactly they want to trigger these withholding invoices. Oracle provides you two different mechanisms through which you can do the configuration. Like either you can do it through Oracle payable setups, which is like a very a simple process basically, and it is required when you have a very simple requirement or simplistic requirement actually to generate withholding invoices based on the X percentage. And if you have a very complex requirement, then Oracle provides you another mechanism through which you can configure your withholding tax. Now, some of the steps are going to be common between both the processes. And for Oracle Fusion Tax, yeah, there are going to be additional steps actually which we need to take into consideration. Okay, so let's deep dive into the session. Create a payments calendar. Now it's also called as a transactional calendar, or it's also uh, called as a withholding calendar. Yeah, I won't be creating a new calendar since I've already created a calendar for withholding. So I'll just run through the steps actually how to create a calendar. So if you find the setup and maintenance, come to manage withholding tax calendar, and then you can click on the calendar and you'll be able to see the withholding calendar basically. So this is the calendar which I've created, payables calendar. Now the calendar type is going to be payment term. Is going to be used for the payment terms because when you are defining your invoices, it calculates the due date. Now the due date comes into the calculation. The due date is calculated based on the calendar maintained over here. So you can have like a bank holidays, you can have your different periods basically. So based on that, actually it finds the due date. So if I'm saying net 30, let's say, now net 30, it won't directly add 30 days basically. It will come to the calendar and then try to figure it out actually which are the working days, and based on that it will calculate the uh, 30 days. Now calendar type, you're going to be selecting only general purpose, which is going to be used for withholding. So I've just created a calendar, WST-calendar. My starting date is 11/22, and then you can define your periods basically. The periods can be Jan, Feb, March, April, May, June. Yeah, 12-month period. Okay. After creating the calendar, we need to jump to regime. You need to create regime. Regime is going to be very important because regime is associated to your country. So I'm going to take Lithuania. Now I haven't created Lithuania regime, so I'm going to create as okay. The text currency automatically comes in actually because it knows like it is a text currency. Euro is my default currency, and my starting date is 24. There are quite few things actually withholding buckets level. So whether you want to maintain the bucket levels at the legal entity level or at the business unit level. Yep. So we'll keep it simple. We'll keep it as business unit. I'm going to ignore these steps. Configuration options. Now, since I'm going to be setting up all my configurations are going to be business unit specific. I'm taking a simple approach, hence I'm just selecting business unit owning text content and not first party legal entity. And configuration for taxes and rules, yes, you can select configuration, common configuration, but you can also override at the party level. So my global configuration owner is going to be, let's say I'm selecting the configuration, uh, it's a common configuration I've selected, but then at the party level I can override, so I don't have to like, so if I got like multiple business units, and each every business unit has got like similar configuration, but except for the one, then I'm going to select as common configuration with party override. I'm going to select 124. Okay. You can say nearest text precision, two decimal, minimum accountable limit. I'm just unit basically. I'm not going to be putting anything basically. And whether you're going to be compounding, it's a very simple approach we are taking. There's no compounding of across or cross regime compounding is required. So I'm just going to press the save button and okay. So once you've done this, okay, so this has been created. Okay, now let's move on to another task, which is going to be creating a tax to be to create managed taxes. So we'll create managed taxes now. Okay, before going to managed taxes, I'll show you the screen first. Let's go to setup and maintenance, come to transaction tax, and if you see the scope has been set to Lithuania regime. So I need to create, otherwise you need to change the regimes. Yeah, you need to point to the proper regime. Yeah, because it's in hierarchy basically. So regime, then taxes, then statuses, and then the rates. Okay, so since we haven't created, we'll just create one more. And if you see, like when you click on configuration owner, because of the regime setup, it will show you the business unit name, and at the same time it will show you global configuration owner. So whether you want to create the setup at the GCO level or you want to create a business unit specific configuration. So this is going to be business unit specific. I'm trying to make it more simple. Country, and it has been selected. Okay, there are two main points over here, tax invoice creation points. So these are the events when exactly you want to create invoice and when exactly the withholding tax needs to be calculated, whether you want to calculate at the time of payments or at the time of tax invoice. Yeah, you can also tick this box, create zero amount tax authority invoices if you want. Another important aspect of this configuration is rate schedule controls. Whether you want to create withholding tax at the document level or at the period level. This is good. Period is going to be like a more complicated because you can also calculate your or define your threshold hierarchy basically based on this period. So if I'm saying period, automatically it will open up this check this list of values, so I can select my withholding tax calendar because Fusion doesn't know like when your withholding period starts and when it ends without this calendar. So this calendar will decide when exactly your period starts and when exactly your period ends. Yep. I'm not going to be putting this tax rule defaults at this point of time. We'll have to come back before enabling the tax for transactions. So you can enter. So I'm going to Lithuania. Okay, so this is going to be business unit specific. I'm going to select. withholding tax. I wanted to select. I do not have liabilities. Anyway, I do not have any account at this point of time, so like I can just put something for the sake of this demo. I would just select. This is a code combination I'm entering. So we had like many segments. There were unnecessary segments as well, actually. So uh, like employee, line of business, like employee and cost center, cost type. The cost center was not cost center in our scenario basically, but then yes, there were quite unnecessary additional segments which we got rid later on. Okay. Okay, so finally we have found this withholding tax liability code, which is 220410. So yeah, I'm not touching the tax rule defaults at this point of time. We have touch base controls and defaults, threshold controls. Also, I'm not going to be touching that actually because that will come through another screen. And tax authorities. This is where exactly we'll come back to the screen once we have created the tax authority because you need to assign a tax authority so that when you're creating the withholding invoice, it needs to be created against that particular tax authority. Okay, so we have created. I'll just quickly check whether we have created or not actually, like it got created successfully. Right, so it has been created successfully. Okay. We need to revisit actually to fill up all these details, tax rule detail, defaults, tax accounts, threshold controls, etc., etc. So after creation of managed taxes, let's go to the screens actually to override some of the setups. Now, if you are creating your taxes as global configuration owner, then you can override this actually at the business unit level because global configuration owner is going to be global for all the business units and for all the legal entities. It's a global basically setup, yeah, as the definition stands. And in these screens, the one which we are going now, like going to be the one which I'm going to be showing to you, that's going to be more of a business unit. That's going to be like you can override, you can create your own events. So let me take you to that particular screen. Okay, so my configuration owner is going to be Pepco Lithuania. You can see there are two records because there are two events right now which we have created. Um, one is for the pre-payment and second one is for the standard invoices. And you can scroll on the right hand side, you will see uh, this calculation points and tax points. They are derived actually from the taxation screens, from managed taxes screen. Okay, you can end it, you can create your own because let's say if you want to change your calculation point to payment and tax invoice creation point to payment, you can do that actually by putting the end date and then recreate those ones. Okay, so you can create a new one, you can end it those ones, create with a new setup like calculation point, and yeah, let's go to another screen which I've shown you, this one. If you see, the context has been set to Pepco Lithuania UAB, and again, you can end it, you can enable, um, yeah, you can end it, and you can recreate basically those events. Let's say, like if you don't want to create, um, if you don't want to initiate the withholding taxes actually for the prepayment invoice, then you can edit those records. So all are interlinked basically. So most of the informations are getting derived from your manage taxes. Last but not the least, actually, like you have to go to this tax codes. Now I've already added the rate basically. So what I've done is I've just created. So if you come to this one, you can create add. You have to fill up all these details like country, which country it belongs to, tax regime code, tax status code is standard, and then you can give the name of that particular tax rate code, and then you can create a tax classification code because that's going to be useful. And when you click on this one, it automatically creates a text classification code for that particular tax rate. So I'll show you like what exactly I've done actually for this particular tax rate. Right, so I've just created LTW underscore WST underscore 10%. I'm not putting any threshold here. If you want to make it more complex, if you want to um, create your withholding tax, you can set up the maximum value basically. So take an example, if your withholding tax is going, if I'm setting up the threshold saying 100 euro, and if my calculation goes beyond 100 euro, withholding tax is not going to be, it will be created only for that 100 euro and it won't go beyond that actually. Yeah. So you can do that threshold value basically. So this is the rate percentage which I've entered. And I'll take you to the tax rate screen as well, actually, just to show you all these screens are interlinked to each other. Okay, well, it's not happening. Sometimes it's flaky screen. Right, okay. So I'm going to put regime code, and this was my tax code. You can see my tax rate. So if you see, like I was capturing all those information in different screen, automatically it gets reflected over here as well actually. So yeah, you can create from here or you can create from there. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter. Okay. So we have completed this part. I've shown you the text classification. I'll show you the text classification, how text classification got created. So let's go to text classification code screen. Okay, you can see this one, LTA WST at 10%. So it gets created automatically. So it has got direct tax rate rules, which is like business unit is so and so, tax rate code is so and so, tax status code is so and so, tax regime code, and yeah, so that's the classification code because these classification code needs to be assigned to your supplier. Okay, I'll come back in a short while. Basically, I do have a supplier, but I do have a supplier, and I might have to create a tax authority basically. Tax authority has not been created as yet. Okay, step is to create a tax authority basically. Okay, so let's go to supplier. I'll create a supplier, which is create a supplier. I'm going to say Lithuania tax authority. I'm going to put spend authorized because this is going to be more important actually, otherwise you won't be able to use the supplier. I'm saying corporation tax country is Lithuania. This is also another important aspect, right? So some of the fields are going to be required over here, like transaction tax. I'm not filling up those details on this one, but yeah, it's transaction tax. Within that, there is a withholding tax registration. Right, this is going to be important actually. So when you come to the screen, if you don't enable this checkbox, then at the time of site assignment to that particular business unit, you won't be able to use that withholding tax. So this is going to be mandatory. And if you are selecting this one, you can select even the text group, and that's going to be inherited actually to the site assignment as well. I'm going to put address, that's going to be important basically. So I'm going to put any address. You can say Pepco, blah, blah, Lithuania. This is called tax authority. I'm just going to put anything basically, yeah, for the sake of this demo. Ordering, number two, save, and I'll quickly jump to the site. Now we'll go to the site. We'll have to create a site. So, so this is going to be another aspect basically. Okay, so I can't see Lithuania in this particular procurement BU. So I might have to add that procurement BU as well, actually. Right. So the reason behind, like, I was not able to see Pepco UAB was like, I've I was I've not assigned myself actually to procurement BU basically. So you need to come to manage procurement agent and assign yourself to this procurement BU. Then only it will appear. So this is what exactly I did actually in order to make it appear actually on supplier side. Okay, I need to select. Okay, right. So I'm just going to create. You can keep it as euro, both as euro payment and euro. Yeah, and I'm going to create a site assignment because that's going to be required. Without site assignment, nothing will happen. And one more point actually, like, okay, let me do the site assignment first. And if you see this one, this checkbox is enabled. Now, if you don't enable the checkbox at the header level, it this screen will be freeze basically. You won't be able to allow user use withholding tax actually for that particular business unit. So that's mandatory basically. And I'm defaulting this one. For payment, I'm going to make it as electronic payment as a default. You can mark it as default and that's it. So we have created Lithuania as a tax authority. And now we'll be creating the transaction to ensure the withholding tax is getting generated, invoice is getting generated. Okay, let's move on to creation. I think we have covered all the steps which were mandatory basically in order to create the transactions. I think this is a very simpler approach we have taken using the Oracle payable setup. We are not complicating, we are not creating any determination sets or condition sets or tax rules actually. We don't want to create withholding tax based on the product classification code or document fiscal classification code, etc., etc. So that's more complicated requirement. Now, if you got this requirement, then you need to follow that pattern basically. You need to follow Oracle Fusion Text rather than going ahead actually with the simple approach. Created this Lithuania tax authority. This needs to be assigned to the taxes, which I completely forgot actually. Like I've told you basically, like we need to come back to this screen once we have done the setup. So open the manage taxes, put the edit, put this in an edit mode. First of all, you need to check what kind of a rate schedule controls you would like to have, whether you would like to have a document control, document-based schedule basis or period basis. When you're selecting document, it doesn't require withholding tax calendar, but as soon as you select period, it does require your calendar basically to in order to understand the start date of your period and the end date of period, and that's how like it can keep accumulating withholding taxes. Okay, and at the same time, like when you are defining your rates, the rates are defined at the period level basically. So I can say from 1st of Jan to 31st of Jan, my rate is going to be 8%, whereas from 1st of Feb to 28th of Feb, my rate is going to be 20%. Yeah, so you can define your rates at the periodically basically. Okay. Okay, these are the so you need to assign the default value. So I've just assigned this default value to tax jurisdiction, tax status, tax rates. So these are the tax rates which we have created. Now to come back to this point, tax authority. So this is where exactly you need to assign. Just make sure whenever you're creating the tax authority, your supplier type should be tax authority. Then only the list of values will pull it up. Otherwise, it won't be visible. So once you assign your tax authority, you need to enable the tax for transactions. Without enabling the tax for transactions, uh, it won't it won't generate the withholding tax basically. It won't do the calculation. Okay, so now let's move on. So we have already enabled. Let's move on to create a transaction. Okay, I've selected ABC Consulting. There are two ABC Consulting, so I would like to select this one because this has got the site which is Lithuania site. So you have to just make sure your supplier and the tax authority both belongs to the same country. So even if you are creating a generic supplier, let's say, but you should even if you're creating a generic supplier, you have to make sure you're creating a different sites for each and every country. And then you're selecting only those sites basically at the time of making the transaction. So in this particular example, I've created a separate, a new company, a new supplier, which belongs to Lithuania. I'm just going to say, okay, I'm just going to create a line item which is 500. Distribution, I can select I can select any time value basically for the account for the sake of demo. Okay, so we have completed. Now we need to validate. Now you must be remembering actually like we have clearly said in our one of our text configuration that we want the calculation point at the time of validation and the tax invoice needs to be generated at the time of creation, at the time of invoicing, not at the time of payment. So this is the point basically we are going to be generating the tax invoice. You can see here withholding tax created. And now we'll go back to the invoice. Select this one. Okay, you can see the latest one, the one which I've created just now. You can see the line items. Line items itself will tell you which invoice this belongs to. Okay, so this is the withholding invoice which has been created. Hope you liked my session. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you.